Hello and welcome. I am Exit Light and this is my channel. Today we're going to do something I've never done before. I decided to go look for some true ghost stories. Stories that people have told online about something they've experienced. I don't usually do this because in my own life I've had enough paranormal experiences that I don't seek out extra ones on purpose. But since we're all locked indoors together, I thought it would be interesting to see if I could go find some that met my criteria of spooky. And while I was doing that, I ran across a quote that pretty much sums up how I feel about ghost stories. It says that ghost stories are one of the best subgenres of horror because they meet at the intersection of entertainment, belief, and fear of the unknown. And I love that. That is what I love about ghost stories. So, I've picked a couple, and I'm going to read them to you. You let me know if you like something like this, and maybe we'll do it a few other times. Alright, before we get started, if you would, please give this video a thumbs up. Also, if you are not subscribed and you would like to be, please go ahead and do so. And if you'd like to be reminded or notified when my content goes live, go ahead and click that bell. Alright, you ready? Let's talk about somebody else's ghost stories instead of mine for once. Here we go. This one is entitled Doppelganger, and it is told by Reddit user QuietVoice4846. Late at night, I usually go to the bathroom multiple times, but for the past 4 days, every time I go to leave, I can see myself standing in the mirror from the corner of my eye. It is like the other me is watching me leave the bathroom. It terrifies me to the point where I almost run out without looking directly at the mirror. I never told my husband about it because I didn't want to acknowledge it out loud. Earlier today I took a nap in our bed while he sat in a chair next to it watching TV. When I woke up, he told me that he had seen me sit up and crawl backwards to the edge of the bed and stand up in front of our bedroom door from the corner of his eye. He thought it was weird that I got up like that because I am in the last month of my pregnancy and I can't really move so good without hurting. So he tried to talk to me. When I didn't answer, he looked at the door to find me not there and still sleeping in bed. I got really creeped out and I finally told him about what I had seen in the bathroom. He thought it was creepy as well, but he didn't want to really talk about it anymore because he thinks it will give whatever it is the power or energy. I have no idea what it is, what it wants, or why we both saw it. This one gets me because of two things. One, if I go into the bathroom in the dark, I will not look in a mirror. I probably wouldn't look in a mirror in the dark anywhere. I don't know why that is, but it's something that does scare me. I don't know if it's because of childhood slumber party games where you look in the mirror and say Bloody Mary over and over again, but I don't think it is. I think there's something else that just gives me a very bad feeling. Another thing is that her husband said he didn't want to talk about it because he believes that if you talk about it, it gives it power and energy, which I 100% believe is true. And even though I believe that's true, if I was experiencing what this woman and her husband experienced, I would have to talk about it for a minute because that would really creep me out. Then we could not talk about it. Alright, here's my next one. I hope you like it. This one is called Haunted Hotels, and it is told by Reddit user Bright Eyes 10. When I was 15, I traveled to Europe with my family. We stayed in Atal, Germany, in a small inn for a few nights. My parents had a double bed on the second floor. My sisters had the double bedroom next to theirs, and I was lucky enough to have a single room all to myself at the far end of the hall. When we checked into our rooms, as soon as I entered the hallway where our rooms were, I remember almost feeling as though I walked into a wall of bad energy. I just felt so unnerved and uneasy in that hallway. But I passed it off as an overactive imagination. I slept the first night without any issues, other than waking up a few times. The next morning at breakfast, one of my sisters mentioned feeling very uncomfortable in the hallway, almost as if the air was crushing. It unnerved me even more that I wasn't the only one who felt weirded out. Plus, she was an adult at the time, so it further cemented in my head that it had to be the wing of this hotel was odd. Later that night, I'm sleeping peacefully when at about 2 a.m., I'm woken by something ripping the covers off me and being jerked about 2 feet towards the end of my bed by my ankle. At first I thought someone had broken into my room, because when I turned towards what had grabbed me, a huge, looming, black shape was visible in the darkness, like a man was in my room. I frantically flipped the light on, only to have there been nothing there. The window was locked from the inside, and there was no one in the closet or the bathroom, and my room was also still locked from the inside. I stayed up the rest of the night scared, playing Cooking Mama on my guests. The next morning we were at breakfast, and my sister mentions that she was up half the night because she thought she saw a person silhouetted against the wall of her room. But when she turned on the light, there was nothing there. It was just a bizarre and creepy experience. We checked out that day, so I didn't get to experience anything after that, but it still freaks me out to this day. This one also has a couple of things that attracted me to it. One, I, too, had been lying in bed, had the covers taken off my legs, and been jerked down to the end of the bed by my ankles. This happened to me when it was light out. There was nothing there. And 2, my son spent 10 years seeing a black figure standing in the corner of his room. All right, let's move on to the next one, shall we? Here's the next one. It's called Shh, as told by Reddit user Fuzzy Bandits. When I was a teenager, I used to babysit my cousin Alyssa. She was little, maybe almost 2, maybe a little older, old enough to say sentences. I'm giving her a bath before bed when she looks out into the hallway, and she gets a terrified look on her face and starts crying. At this moment, my aunt's Pomeranian starts going nuts as well, barking and growling into the hallway. The atmosphere in the room became uncomfortable, and I started getting scared. I took her downstairs from the 3rd floor in the townhouse to try and calm her down. I asked her what was wrong, and she said something along the lines of, "The man with the black eyes was there." When I continued to pry, she looked up to the 2nd floor stairs, her eyes getting big, and looks at me, bringing her finger up to her mouth, and said, "Shh," while shaking her head no. This next one is called Unwanted Tenants and is told by Reddit user Vanilla Gorilla. My daughter was 4 years old when we lived in our last home. I was a single mom at the time, so it was just she and I alone in the home. I always got an uncomfortable feeling in her room, particularly the closet area, but never thought much of it, until one evening I had put her to bed, and I was doing chores, and I walked past her room, and I heard her whispering. I listened for a bit, thinking she was talking to herself, but it was definitely a two-way conversation, with her saying, "Uh-huh," "Okay," stuff like that. I walked in and asked her who she was talking to. She smiled uncomfortably and said, "No one." I took her out into the hall, and she wouldn't say anything, but I could tell that she was afraid. Finally, we went outside of the house. She said there was a man in her room who didn't want us in the house, and he had told her this, and to tell her mom to leave. I moved us out a month later. She has not since ever had an episode like this. This last one is called Family Reunion, as told by Reddit user Big Chala. One day, when my daughter was 2, we were having a typical Terrible Twos moment. She was throwing a bit of a tantrum for about 5 or 10 minutes, and we couldn't get her under control. At some point, she rather suddenly stopped and started staring at the wall. She then started lightly giggling. It was weird. One second she was crying and screaming, and the next she was smiling and happy. Then she started saying, "Funny lady," over and over. We asked her who she saw, and she pointed to the wall again and said, "The funny lady." When we asked her to describe who she saw, she described my deceased grandmother. I mean, exactly described her. She had never met her, and I don't think had ever even seen a picture. Not that a 2-year-old could remember a picture. I am not much of a believer in the paranormal, but I know for sure that my daughter got a chance to meet my grandmother, and that makes me happy. When I told the story to my parents, they didn't seem as shocked as I was. When I tried to get a response from them, they looked at me and said, "I guess you don't remember that you met your deceased grandfather when you were 3. The same exact thing happened to you 30 years ago." And I guess that this one has a connection for me because all of my kids at some point saw people. My oldest daughter, she would point to the ceilings, the corners of the ceilings, and tell me that she saw angels all the time. She would describe the way angels smelled, which was like cookies. My middle daughter, she would see an old man walking in a home we used to live in. She would see him walking into the bathroom and nonchalantly point out, "There, he's walking into the bathroom." And she was also, both of them were also between the 2 to 3 year age range. And then my youngest son, when he was in that age range, we drove by this little strip mall looking thing in this town we used to live in Arizona. It was very small, and he said, "There are dead people here." And he was about 2. And I, said, "No, there's not dead people here." And he was very adamant that there were dead people there. Several months later, I ended up having to take a driving course after getting a speeding ticket, and the man who gave the course had lived in this town his entire life, and he told the class that that building used to be the city's hospital. Thank you for coming and listening to these ghost stories. I hope you enjoyed this. If you do, let me know, and we can do this again sometime. Please give this video a thumbs up. If you are not subscribed and you'd like to be, please do that. And go ahead and click that bell so you can be notified of my content. And please share my videos. It really, really helps my channel. And good night.